Before the story begins, make sure to like, subscribe, and let me know. What time do you usually watch videos? And don't forget to suggest the next story or content you'd like to see. Story 1. The lamp post that blinked in time with my steps. It started on a night when I was already exhausted. I had stayed late at the library on campus, trying to cram for an exam I should have started studying for weeks earlier. When I finally left, it was close to midnight. The walk back to my apartment wasn't long, but the neighborhood between the library and my place had always unsettled me. Not because it was unsafe. It was just strangely quiet. Too quiet, even for a small town. The streets were mostly empty. A few parked cars lined the cracked sidewalks, and the occasional rustle of leaves in the late summer air was the only sound. The road stretched long and straight, lined with old lampposts that cast a sickly orange glow over everything. They weren't the modern LED kind, but the tall iron poles that hummed faintly, their bulbs dimming at the edges. At first, I noticed nothing unusual. I walked, clutching my backpack, humming to myself to fill the silence. My footsteps echoed lightly on the pavement. That was when the first flicker happened. The lamppost directly above me buzzed, then blinked once, plunging the street into near darkness before flaring back to life. I stopped mid-step, heart leaping into my throat, but I brushed it off. Old lights flickered all the time. I told myself it was nothing. I kept walking. A few steps later, another light ahead of me blinked. Not once, not twice, but in a rhythm. A steady on-off on-off that almost seemed deliberate. I froze, staring at it. The longer I looked, the more I noticed it wasn't random. The flickering was in time with something. With me. When I took one cautious step forward, the light blinked once. I waited, standing still, and the light stayed steady. Then I took another step. Again, the lamp flickered, buzzing faintly as if responding to my movement. A chill crawled up my spine. I forced a laugh under my breath. Okay, that's weird. Probably some electrical glitch. But as I continued, it kept happening. Each time my foot hit the ground, the light would blink, sometimes briefly dimming, sometimes shutting off entirely for a split second. The timing was too exact to ignore. It was like the lamp was reacting to me, keeping rhythm with my steps. By the time I reached the third block, the pattern had grown even more disturbing. It wasn't just one lamp. The next post down the road began to join in, syncing its flickers with the one I just passed. It was as though the lights were relaying some invisible signal to each other, keeping pace with me as I walked under them. Step, blink, step, blink, step, blink. I tried to ignore it, but each flicker felt like an eye opening and closing above me. The shadows on the pavement seemed to twitch and lurch in strange ways, bending unnaturally with every pulse of light. I picked up the pace, my sneakers slapping faster against the ground. The lights responded, flickering quicker, buzzing louder, until it sounded like the entire street was alive with electricity. Finally, I broke into a jog. The orange glow around me stuttered wildly, as though the world itself was glitching. I could barely see, but I didn't dare stop. My heart was pounding, and every instinct screamed at me to get home, to get away from whatever was happening. When I turned the corner onto my street, something made me look back. That was a mistake. All the lampposts I had passed were flickering in unison now, not just when I moved, but pulsing steadily as though marking my path. They buzzed and flashed in waves, one after the other, chasing me down the street like a line of falling dominoes. The entire row of lights blinked toward me, step by step, until I tore my eyes away and sprinted the last block home. I burst into my apartment, slamming the door shut and locking it, chest heaving. My living room light hummed steadily above me, calm and unmoving. For a while, I sat there on the floor, trying to catch my breath, telling myself I had imagined it. Stress, exhaustion, maybe some kind of hallucination from lack of sleep. But then I noticed something. Through the blinds of my living room window, I could see the faint glow of the street outside. My building sat under one lone lamppost, a tall, rusted thing that usually worked just fine. But now, as I stared, I saw it flicker. Not randomly. In time with the pounding of my heartbeat. I yanked the blinds shut and refused to look again that night. The next morning, the light was steady, as though nothing had happened. I almost convinced myself it had all been a nightmare. But when I left for class, I noticed something carved into the base of the lamppost, words etched deep into the metal. Keep walking. I hadn't seen them before. I didn't want to believe they were fresh, but the edges of the letters gleamed silver against the rust, too sharp and new to have been there long. Since that night, I've taken a different route home, even if it means adding an extra mile. Still, sometimes when I'm lying in bed at night, I'll see a faint glow creep through my curtains. A glow that shouldn't be there, because my apartment faces away from the street. And once, just once, I swore I heard the faint buzz of electricity in my room, humming in rhythm with my breaths, waiting for me to move. Story 2. The streetlight that appeared on every corner. I grew up in a quiet town where the streets after sunset were so empty, it felt like you were walking through a stage that had been abandoned after the performance. The only signs of life were the streetlights that flickered on one by one at dusk, their amber glow staining the sidewalks with uneven patches of light. For as long as I can remember, I took comfort in them. They were guardians of the night, standing still, predictable, and safe. Until one evening, when I realized that one particular streetlight wasn't like the others. It was late September when it started. I was walking home from a late study session at the library. The air had that sharp chill that hints at autumn. As I cut through Oakwood Avenue, I noticed a single streetlight at the corner. It was taller than the others, the bulb buzzing faintly like a trapped insect inside. It didn't seem unusual at first, just a little out of place. But as I turned down Birch Street, there it was again. Same height, same faint buzz, same crooked bend at the base, like it had been struck by a car at some point. I slowed down, heart pressing against my ribs. Maybe I was imagining it. Maybe the town just had a few lights installed from the same manufacturer. But when I turned onto Maple Lane, I saw it again, waiting for me at the end of the block. I froze. I could see the others, normal streetlights lined along the road, evenly spaced. But this one was different. It was always on the corner, and always the only one casting its sickly orange light across my path. That night, I forced myself to keep walking, trying to convince myself it was coincidence. But the next night, and the night after, it happened again. Every block I turned, there it was, the same crooked post, buzzing faintly, its light swaying slightly, even though there was no wind. By the fourth night, I couldn't take it anymore. I stopped right beneath it on Cedar Street and looked up. The bulb hummed, pulsing faintly in and out, almost like it was breathing. The hairs on my arms stood up as I realized the light dimmed in rhythm with my heartbeat. The longer I stood there, the slower my pulse seemed to grow, as if the streetlight was syncing with me, pulling me into its rhythm. I stumbled back, breath sharp, and hurried the rest of the way home without looking back. I tried to change my routes. I cut through alleys, backyards, even the woods that bordered the town. But no matter which way I went, when I reached a corner, it was there, always standing, always watching. One night, out of desperation, I pulled out my phone and snapped a picture of it. At first, the image looked normal, just a streetlight glowing in the dark. But as I zoomed in, I noticed something horrifying. Faint outlines beneath the bulb, like shapes pressing outward from inside the glass. Faces. Dozens of them, stretched and warped, their mouths open in silent screams. I deleted the picture instantly, but it didn't help. That night, the light was waiting for me at every turn, brighter than ever, humming louder, until it drowned out my thoughts. It felt less like a lamppost and more like an eye, following me, pinning me in its gaze. I couldn't sleep. I taped my curtains shut, shoved furniture against the windows, but through every gap I swore I saw that orange glow leaking in, waiting for me. The final night I ever saw it, I made a choice I regret. Instead of running from it, I walked straight up to it, trembling. My breath misted in the cold, and the buzzing grew so loud I could feel it in my bones. The air under its glow felt heavy, charged like static. And then I touched the post. The world blinked. Not like I closed my eyes, but like reality itself flickered. For half a second, everything went black, then came back, but different. The houses around me were warped, the windows boarded up, roofs sagging. The street was cracked, empty, abandoned. And the light, it wasn't just a post anymore. The bulb had grown larger, and the faces inside it pressed closer to the surface, eyes rolling, mouths gaping as if they were suffocating in glass. One of the faces turned toward me, and it smiled. I don't remember running home, but I woke up in my bed, sheets soaked in sweat. For days, I didn't leave the house. I told myself it was a nightmare, a hallucination. But last week, curiosity got the better of me. I drove out of town, far into the city, miles away from the streets I grew up on. And when I parked at a busy intersection, surrounded by honking cars and flashing signs, I looked across the street. At the corner stood a tall, crooked lamppost. The bulb buzzing faintly, pulsing with my heartbeat, and I swear it's getting closer. Story 3, the old highway lamp that wouldn't stay behind. I grew up in a small town tucked away in the Appalachian foothills, where the old highways twisted and turned like the veins of something alive. They were narrow, poorly lit, and rarely traveled at night unless you had no other choice. That was the first thing my parents taught me when I got my license. Stay off the old highway after dark. It doesn't like to let people go. I always thought it was just one of those local sayings, half superstition and half cautionary advice. That was, until the night I learned what they meant. It was late September, just after my shift at the gas station. I had stayed to close up, sweeping the floors and counting the till before locking the doors behind me. The drive home should have taken 20 minutes on the new bypass, but construction had closed it off. My only option was the old highway. I remember sitting in my car, staring at the dark mouth of the road ahead, lined with sagging trees and silence, feeling a chill that had nothing to do with the weather. The road itself was a relic, cracked asphalt, faded lines, and broken guardrails. The streetlights along it were sparse, some barely clinging to life with faint orange glows. That's when I noticed one in particular. A tall, rusted lamppost with a crooked head stood about 50 yards ahead. Its bulb flickered in a slow, uneven rhythm, like it was straining to keep itself alive. As I drove past, it gave one sharp blink, then steadied, casting a circle of sickly amber light that followed my car for just a moment too long. I brushed it off. Old things break, I thought. Nothing supernatural about it. But a mile later, I saw it again. Same rusted pole, same crooked angle, same unnatural flicker. I slowed down, my headlights sweeping across its rust-streaked body as if to confirm it wasn't just déjà vu. My chest tightened. I glanced in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see the previous lamp still behind me, but the road stretched out empty, swallowed by the dark. I pressed harder on the gas. Another mile, another corner. There it was again. This time, I was sure, the exact same lamppost, as though it had torn itself from the ground and sprinted ahead, planting itself further down the highway before I could catch up. The thought made my skin crawl, yet my rational brain kept fighting it. "It's just similar," I muttered aloud, trying to keep calm. "Lots of the lights out here look the same." But with every mile, it was there, waiting. Its flickering seemed more deliberate now, pulsing in jagged bursts that almost matched the pounding of my heart. The air in the car grew staler, thicker, as though the atmosphere itself was watching me. I kept glancing in the mirrors, praying for another car to come along, but I was utterly alone on that ancient road. Then, halfway through a curve, I saw something that made my blood run cold. For the briefest moment, as my headlights swept across the post, its crooked head turned. The lamp's beam didn't just shine down. It followed me, pivoting as though the thing were bending to watch me pass. I screamed, slamming the gas pedal. My old sedan roared louder than it had in years, tires squealing as I tore down the cracked pavement. Trees blurred into shadows, and the highway narrowed into an endless stretch of black. But no matter how fast I drove, the lamp was always there. Flicker, blink, tilt. It wasn't just appearing anymore. It was advancing. Every few hundred feet, I'd catch a glimpse of its tall frame leaning just a little closer to the road, as if reaching for me. Its light cast warped shadows that stretched across my windshield, writhing like living things. I clutched the wheel so hard my knuckles whitened, whispering prayers I hadn't spoken since childhood. By the time I reached the halfway point of the highway, I was hysterical. My vision blurred with tears, and the road felt like it would never end. I kept glancing at the dashboard clock, but the minutes weren't adding up. A drive that should have taken 10 minutes along this stretch had already dragged into 30. The lamp was toying with me, stretching time the way it had stretched distance. Then, the worst moment came. I hit a pothole, hard. My car jolted, lights flickering, and for just a second, the engine nearly stalled. When the headlights blinked back on, the lamppost wasn't ahead anymore. It was beside me. Planted right off the shoulder, its rusted body so close I could have reached out the window and touched it. The crooked head bent low, angling directly into my window, flooding the car with its sickly light. My skin prickled under its glow, and the air filled with the smell of burning wires. For the first time, I heard something, metal groaning, like it was dragging itself forward inch by inch. I lost it. Screaming, I swerved hard, nearly clipping the guardrail as I tore down the last stretch of highway. My chest heaved, vision swimming, but I refused to look in the mirrors again. All I knew was that I needed to get off that road, get home, get anywhere but there. When the old highway finally spat me out onto the main road into town, I nearly sobbed with relief. The world suddenly looked normal again. Streetlights upright, cars parked along the curb, houses glowing with porch lamps. My heart slowed, but only a little. Because when I glanced in the rearview mirror, far behind me, just before the highway disappeared into the trees, there it stood, the same rusted lamppost flickering once then twice before going dark. For days afterward, I couldn't sleep. Every night, I swore I saw its glow seeping faintly through my blinds, as though it had followed me home. I replaced my curtains, moved my bed to face the wall, but it didn't matter. No matter what I did, I felt it. And then came the morning when I left for work, stepped onto my porch, and froze. There, at the end of my driveway, stood a tall, rusted lamppost, crooked head, sickly glow. Waiting. Story 4. The silent streetlight outside my window. When my parents moved us to a new neighborhood, I thought it would be a welcome change. The city had grown loud, chaotic, and dangerous, and the small town of Carver's Hill seemed like a quiet refuge. Our new house was a modest 2-story home on a corner lot with a view of the woods on one side and the rest of the neighborhood stretching down the other. What stood directly outside my bedroom window, though, was a streetlight. At first glance, it seemed ordinary, a tall gray pole with a bulb that glowed an amber color. But the light was too close to my window, perched almost unnaturally near, as if it had been placed with the specific purpose of shining into my room. My curtains weren't thick enough to block it out entirely, so at night my room was always bathed in a dim orange glow. The first night, I noticed something strange. As I lay in bed, trying to fall asleep, the light flickered. Not the random sputtering you'd expect from an old bulb, but a deliberate, steady flicker. 3 short blinks, pause. 3 short blinks, pause. It reminded me of Morse code, though I didn't know what it meant. I told myself it was nothing, maybe electrical interference, and tried to ignore it. But the next night, it blinked the same way. Always the same pattern. 3 short flashes. Pause. By the 4th night, curiosity overcame me, and I started jotting it down on a notebook I kept by my bed. 3 short flashes, then dark for a moment, then 3 flashes again. It never stopped until about 3 in the morning, when it would hold steady like any other streetlight. I asked my parents if they noticed anything strange about the light, but my mom shrugged it off, saying, "Probably just old wiring." My dad didn't care enough to even comment. Weeks passed, and the pattern continued. It started to feel less like random malfunction and more like the light was communicating. The thought unsettled me, so I tried keeping my curtains closed tighter, piling books against the sill to keep out the glow. But no matter how I arranged things, I could still see the flicker from the corner of my eye, still sense that it was aimed directly at me. One night, I decided to test it. Around midnight, when the flickering started again, I went to the window and raised my hand. Slowly, I tapped 3 times on the glass, mimicking its rhythm. I didn't expect anything to happen, but as soon as I finished, the light stopped flickering. For almost a full minute, it glowed steady, as though holding its breath. Then, with perfect precision, it blinked once. Pause. Blinked once. Pause. Blinked once. 3 long blinks. A reply. My skin crawled. I yanked the curtain shut and didn't open it again that night. From then on, I avoided looking at it. I'd go to bed with my back to the window, headphones in, trying to drown out the eerie thought that I wasn't just being watched. It was trying to talk to me. But the more I ignored it, the worse it got. The flickering became louder somehow. Not sound exactly, but an awareness. Like the light was pressing against the walls of my room, demanding my attention. My dreams grew restless, filled with glowing orange shapes and the vague impression of being dragged into the woods across the street. Every night I woke up around 3, heart pounding, the light steady again as if pretending it hadn't been doing anything at all. One night, when I couldn't stand it anymore, I decided to confront it. I sat on the edge of my bed, facing the window, and pulled the curtains wide open. The street outside was empty. No cars, no people. Just that lamp, tall and silent, burning orange. For a moment, it didn't flicker at all. Then, slowly, deliberately, it blinked 3 times again. But this time, I didn't reply. Instead, I grabbed my phone, determined to record it as proof. As I hit the record button, the light went out. Complete darkness swallowed the street. My phone camera, pointed directly at the pole, showed only the faint outline of the lamppost. I thought maybe the bulb had finally died. Relief began to wash over me, until the light came back on, brighter than before. And now, instead of flickering, it held steady. But what made my stomach drop was that the glow wasn't confined to the bulb anymore. It was as if the entire post itself was glowing faintly, an unnatural aura spilling into the air. The glow reached toward my window. I stumbled back, dropping my phone onto the carpet, and scrambled under the covers like a terrified child. My room became a cage of orange light, pulsing against the walls, through my blanket, through my eyelids. Then, as suddenly as it began, it stopped. When I finally dared to peek out, the light was back to normal, just a quiet streetlight burning outside. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, I looked for my recording. My phone had shut off unexpectedly, though it had been fully charged. When I turned it back on, the recording was there, but the screen was nothing but static. No sound, no image, just white noise. I told my parents again, but they laughed, accusing me of scaring myself with ghost stories. But I wasn't imagining it, because last night the light didn't just flicker 3 times. It spelled something else. I don't know Morse code, but I knew enough to look it up. ... dash dash dash. ... SOS. The streetlight outside my window was asking for help. And the worst part? I don't think it was calling out for its own sake. I think it was calling me. Story 5, the streetlight that waited at the end of the road. When I was a kid, the street I lived on wasn't the sort of place you'd expect to scare anyone. It was a short, sleepy cul-de-sac tucked into a quiet neighborhood. The houses all looked alike, each with trimmed hedges and neatly painted fences. At the very end of the road stood a single streetlight, tall, silver, and humming faintly with electricity. It was the kind of lamp you wouldn't notice unless you had to walk past it late at night. For most kids, it was just part of the background, like the fire hydrant or the storm drains. But for me, that streetlight was the reason I started running home after sunset. I first noticed something strange when I was 10. My mom had sent me to deliver a casserole dish to our neighbor, Mrs. Carlson, who lived across the street. By the time I started walking back, the sun had sunk behind the houses, leaving only streaks of purple and orange in the sky. When I looked down the road, I saw the streetlight at the cul-de-sac flicker to life. That wasn't strange in itself. It came on every evening around that time. But I could have sworn the glow wasn't just shining downward. It felt like it was shining at me. I froze, dish in hand, staring at the pale cone of light. It looked as though the edges of the glow stretched farther than usual, reaching like fingers across the asphalt toward me. I walked faster, telling myself I was imagining things. But when I reached my driveway, I couldn't help glancing back. The light flickered like a wink. After that night, I began paying attention to the lamp more than I wanted to. Whenever I was out after dark, whether riding my bike or taking the trash cans down the driveway, I felt it. That humming buzz, that halo of pale light, and the uneasy certainty that it wasn't just there to brighten the street. It was watching. One evening, my older brother dared me to walk all the way to the end of the road and touch the pole. He and his friends laughed about it, saying I was too scared of a dumb lamppost. Determined not to be the butt of their jokes, I agreed. It was a clear night, the stars sharp above me, the air cool enough to raise goosebumps on my arms. The lamp was already glowing, its circle of light spilling across the pavement. I walked slowly at first, then faster, until my sneakers scuffed right into the patch of brightness beneath it. Up close, the pole looked ancient. Rust streaked the base, and when I touched the cold metal, I swore I felt something pulse beneath it, like a faint heartbeat. My brother and his friends cheered from down the street, their voices breaking the silence. But as soon as I stepped back, I noticed something wrong. The air around me seemed heavier, the buzzing louder, as if the lamp was reacting to my presence. I squinted up at the bulb. For a split second, I thought I saw shapes swirling inside the glass, faces pressing outward, their mouths open as if screaming but making no sound. I bolted back home, nearly tripping over my own feet, with the boys' laughter following me. That night, I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that bulb and the warped, desperate faces trapped inside it. Over the years, I tried to convince myself it had just been my imagination, but the lamp never left me alone. Even when I avoided walking past it, I would still glance toward the end of the road and see the glow waiting. Sometimes it seemed brighter than the others, its light reaching a little farther, like it wanted to remind me it was still there. The worst night happened when I was 13. I had stayed too long at a friend's house and was walking back alone. The road was silent, lined with sleeping houses. As I approached my street, I noticed something that made my stomach drop. The lamp was off. That had never happened before. Not once in all the years I had lived there had the streetlight failed to glow at night. But now it stood dark, tall, and watchful at the end of the cul-de-sac. I froze. Then, with a faint click, it flared back to life. Only this time, it wasn't the usual pale halo. The light was sharp and white, almost blinding, and it was aimed straight down the middle of the street, straight at me. I ran. I don't remember how fast, only that I didn't stop until I slammed my front door shut behind me. My parents scolded me for running inside like that, but I didn't care. From my bedroom window, I peeked through the curtains. The street was quiet again, the lamp glowing its normal dull yellow. But I knew it had done something deliberate. As I grew older, the streetlight became less of a daily terror and more of a silent dread in the back of my mind. I avoided thinking about it whenever I could. By the time I went to college, I was grateful to move away, to live on a campus where the lamps were modern and unremarkable. But the story doesn't end there. During one of my visits back home, I stayed up late, reading in my childhood bedroom. Around midnight, I decided to stretch my legs and glance outside. I pulled the curtain back, expecting to see the familiar, quiet cul-de-sac. The streetlight at the end of the road wasn't there. I blinked, thinking maybe it had been removed or replaced. But no. A moment later, I saw it, standing closer, not at the cul-de-sac anymore, but at the corner of our yard. Its glow reached all the way up to my window, spilling across the grass like an accusing finger pointing directly at me. I staggered backward, heart pounding. When I looked again, it was gone, back where it had always been. To this day, I don't know if the lamp is real in the way we think of things as real. All I know is that it has waited, patient and watchful, for as long as I've known it. And whenever I return to that neighborhood, I never stay outside after dark. Because the lamp at the end of the road isn't just a streetlight. It's something else, something older, something that waits for people who wander too close. And I know it's still waiting for me. When the shadows lengthen and the streetlights begin to hum, it's easy to convince yourself that what you saw was just coincidence, just a flicker, just a trick of the eye. But some patterns go too far to ignore. Lights that move in rhythm with your steps. Lamps that wait at the end of your road. A glow that refuses to be left behind. Maybe these aren't just machines wired into the city grid. Maybe they're watching, following, waiting. And the next time you walk home alone at night, ask yourself, are the streetlights guiding you safely, or are they leading you somewhere you don't want to go?